Are you looking for a thorough grammar curriculum with minimal prep from you? Come check out First Language Lessons from the Well-Trained Mind. If you're new here, I'm Rian, a Christ-following wife and a homeschool mom to 3 boys. Here we talk all things homeschool, and we will learn together how to use our roles as wife, mom, teacher, and homemaker in order to glorify God. I've used First Language Lessons for the last 4 years. We're wrapping up our 4th year with our oldest son, and I'm wrapping up the 1st year with my 2nd son. We found this program super thorough and easy to use. So here I'm going to show you the pros and a few cons about the program and share with you what it looks like on the inside. Okay, for level 1, looks like this. Not a very thick book at all. And for level 1 and 2, I believe, you do not need any workbooks. So there is very minimal writing involved at all. Most of the writing exercises are optional, and I choose not to do them usually because we do a lot of writing with the Writing with Ease program. So this program is completely scripted, like most of Well-Trained Mind things are. And that is super easy for me. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to teach something. It tells me exactly what to say and what my kids are expected to say back to me. So this goes over your typical grammar. So we're talking punctuation, parts of speech, proper nouns, common nouns, abbreviations, when to capitalize, all of that basic stuff that you would think of when you think of basic grammar. Then there's also, like I said, some copy work. We don't do much of that because we have copy work with our writing program. And then there's also some narration. Sometimes you look at a picture and are asked questions about it. Sometimes you read a story or a poem and answer questions about it. Then there is also some poetry memorization, which is very helpful. And all of it is based on really good literature. When they use examples, they take them from really well-written literature, which I always love. Now, my son is in 2nd grade and just on level 1, which they say is a totally acceptable way to start this program. You don't have to start level 1 in 1st grade. We did that with my older son and I kind of regretted it. I really regretted it with the writing program. I didn't regret it as much with grammar, but I think he definitely could have waited another year. So with my 2nd son, I didn't want to make the same mistake, especially because he's an August birthday. So I went ahead and started him on level 1 in 2nd grade. And he will be using level 2 next year. So let's flip this camera around and I will let you see inside it. All right, level 1, here is your cover. I know this is pretty zoomed in, but I want you to actually be able to take a look and actually be able to see what is in there. Here we have our table of contents that tells you exactly what you will be teaching in each lesson. Here are the acknowledgements. And here is an overview of how to use the book, her general thoughts on teaching language, the method of this book. Here you'll see the goals for grade 1. And then she talks about her 4-strand approach, which is using memory work, copy work, narration, and grammar. And then it gives you a detailed breakdown of how to use the lesson. And then here you will find a list of things that you will need to teach throughout the year. And let me just tell you, there's a lot of these I never used. So you can do it without. However, I'm sure they are useful if you do decide to use them. Here's a look at lesson 1. So here is what you say. Here is what you say together. Again, what you say, what your student should say, what you say. That's the lesson. Typically, I do 3 lessons a week in order to get through this all in 1 school year. Here's lesson 33. I wanted to show you kind of what a narration page would look like. So here is the picture that you have your student look at, and then you kind of tell them about it. Again, all scripted, and then you just do a back and forth dialogue on having them really explore the picture and tell you in their own words about it. Here in lesson 63 is an example of a poem you will need to memorize, or have your student memorize rather. And here's another one, and then the different dialogue you will need to have following that. And all of these lessons are fairly short. Some are shorter than others, but none of them are super long in this level. So here you're going to be introducing statement sentences, and then every once in a while we'll have an enrichment activity. We sometimes do those, sometimes don't. But like here in the lesson before, there's an example of copy work, and we just don't usually do those. And then here at the very end is your final grammar review. So it's just all discussion, it's not any sort of test or anything, but you just talk about basically everything you've learned over the course of the year. And then here is your glossary of terms and definitions. This here shows you where you can find all the poems that you're going to memorize throughout the year, the pages that they're on. Here is your index. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Now be sure to check out, if you haven't already, my Ordinary Parent's Guide to Teaching Reading flip through and review, because this is also by the Well-Trained Mind, and it has helped both of my boys learn to read very, very easily. So for level 4, this is what my 4th grader is using. As you can see, this is a lot thicker book. It's a pretty hefty book. But this walks through every single thing. This serves as both what you teach from, your teaching text, and your answer key. So the answers are built right into the lesson, so you don't have to have a separate key for that. And levels 3 and 4, you do need to have the student workbook. I don't have that to show you because in the beginning of the year I cut the bindings off and put them into my file box system. Again, this is totally scripted. For us, it is almost a little too thorough. Now, the only reason I say that is because sometimes the examples are excessive. And so sometimes I'm like, okay, if you do 2 correctly, then you don't have to do it anymore. Or sometimes there's just like, here's the correct way to do it, look at it and then copy it. And I'm like, okay, well, if you can just read these out loud to me and kind of point to the certain punctuation that we're talking about or capitalization or whatever it may be, then we'll call it good. So in here, it does review, you know, your punctuation and your parts of speech, and actually goes into those a lot deeper. And then there's conjugating, there's poetry, there's proofreading, and then there's a lot of sentence diagramming. So we're really breaking down those parts of speech and seeing what parts of the sentences are what. And my son is actually really, really good at this, which I find interesting because he's not a great writer. He doesn't love writing, but he's really good at grammar. And then there's also extra units at the back, and they tell you you can either just save those all for the end and do them at the end, or they give you a schedule to use where you can just split them up evenly throughout the year, which is what we've chosen to do. And those are letter writing and dictionary skills. So where you learn how to read a dictionary entry, how to look up dictionary, words in a dictionary, which I know is kind of a lost art. I feel like Google's there, right? But I think it's an important skill to have. And being able to understand when you do see a dictionary entry, what the heck all of those symbols and letters and weird things mean. So as I said, we've used this all 4 years with my son. This next year, and maybe in 6th grade also, we will be taking a break from this, because here you go into an entirely different program they have for middle school and high school. And they say you can start it as young as 5th grade, but the 5th grade is pretty young. And so if you do start it in 5th grade, you have to start really, really slow. So instead of just doing that, I thought we would take a year or 2 and kind of just try something else for a while. Not because I don't like this program, but just because I don't want to stretch him too much next year, because there's already a few things that are going to be changing next year for us, and I don't want it to be overwhelmed for him. But we will be coming back to this probably in 7th grade. So let me take you on a look inside level 4. Okay, here is our level 4 cover. Here we have your table of contents, again, where it just shows you each lesson, what you will be teaching. Then here's your introduction, where again, it talks about the 4-strand approach, which it told you about in book 1, and I'm sure it's in book 2 and 3 as well. And then here it tells you how to use the lessons. It tells you the length of the lessons. It says to do 2 or 3 lessons each week in order to complete it in 36 weeks. Then it says if you decide to include the units at the end as well, that you'll probably need to do 3 lessons per week, which is what we do. And it talks about the use of inclusive pronouns, which is such a funny thing to talk about in this day and age, but she does say him a lot, just as, you know, traditionally is done. Here this talks a little bit about the student's workbook, the optional follow-ups, and the optional end units. Okay, here's lesson 1. Again, same setup. You have instructor, what the student should say, your lines, their lines. Things in boxes kind of like this are just kind of telling you what to do. And then there's sometimes these optional exercises, which again, I don't usually do, but you very well can. But again, here is an answer key, so the answers are going to be directly into this book, which is really nice. Okay, lesson 28. Now we are getting into diagramming sentences. So here's simple versus complete subjects and predicates. So you'll usually have a little bit of review. It tells you what you'll be reviewing, and then they'll also introduce a new thing. So throughout, you will see that they refer to different exercises in bold. And so in your student's workbook, that's what theirs are called. So they'll have exercise 1, exercise 2. So when you say look at exercise 2, they know exactly where to look. Okay, here's lesson 45, prepositional phrases that describe direct objects. So you'll work on this list of prepositions. We've been working on this for a long time now. He has them pretty much down by now. And again here, this is you telling them what they need to do. They do it, and then there is your answer key in case you need some help. And this is one of those longer lessons, so it keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on. And then there at the end of the lesson is your answer key for the sentences that they should have diagrammed. Again, some of those practices, if I think he has it, I don't make him do the whole thing. Here's lesson 67. So again, we're still diagramming, but we're using, we're getting our sentences more complicated as we go. Okay, so this is from lesson 83 where we are reviewing. And so these are some really complicated sentences that you will have them diagram. And then here toward the back, I was going to show you kind of what those writing letters lessons looked like. So it just tells them what you need to do to write a good letter. And of course, they actually write letters and send them to family members. It talks about even addressing the envelope and what that needs to look like. And even talks about business letters. And then we're talking about our dictionary skills. So we're talking about alphabetizing, telling what parts of speech the words are in that we look up. And then here we're talking about synonyms and antonyms in the dictionary. Okay, then here at the end you have definitions, rules, and lists. So definitions that they're supposed to memorize, a glossary of terms to know, a summary of the rules, lists that they should memorize. And then here you have a sample schedule. Here is the schedule we use down here along this side, option C. So option A is when you just want to do the main 85 lessons of the book. So you're alternating 2 and 3 lessons a week. Option B is where you do the entire book and then finish with those optional end units. And then option C, which is what I do, is where they mix in those units kind of throughout the year. And then here's your bibliography. So all your sources and your index. So comment down below with what curriculum you use for grammar. Be on the lookout. Friday, I have a 5th grade curriculum choices for the 2021-2022 school year. And subscribe if you haven't already, and I thank you so much for watching.